In the first scene, a young Boy Scout stands at a busy intersection in Bangkok. Amidst the hustle and bustle of traffic, he spots an elderly woman struggling to carry her bags across the street. Seeing her difficulty, he rushes to her aid, trying to help her cross safely. However, in the confusion of the moment, he drops his cell phone in the street and leaves it there, helping the woman get to safety. Just as he turns to retrieve his phone, a traffic signal changes and a rushing bus crashes into him, causing his untimely death. Cheval isn't dead yet? Is Cheval killing? In the next scene, the protagonist Phuchit Panhong appears and faces many difficulties in his life. He works as a salesman at the Yamaha company, where he is constantly humiliated by his superiors and colleagues alike. In addition, his girlfriend seems to have broken up with him for the sake of becoming a pop star, leaving him emotionally broken despite his best efforts to make ends meet. Phuchit struggles with his finances. He lives alone in a small apartment and is burdened by mounting debts that he can't seem to overcome. The constant pressure in his life takes its toll on him, and he becomes increasingly desperate to find a way out of his predicament. On a certain day, he goes to his school to sell his products to a potential client. However, he was mortified to learn that his colleague had already made the sale there. The very next day he leaves home to go to work, but to his horror he discovers that a creditor has taken away his car because he has not paid off his debts. Phuchit's workday takes a sharp turn for the worse when he is called into the office by his boss and told to quit because of his poor sales record. Back at his desk, he becomes even more despondent when he finds a pile of overdue bills from credit companies, compounding his already growing financial problems. Feeling depressed, Phoch goes out to the stairs to gather his thoughts and smoke a cigarette. But his frustration only increases when he realizes he's out of them. To make matters worse, his mother calls and asks for money to pay for his younger sister's school fees. Despite his dire financial situation, Phuchit agrees to send the money. At this point, his phone rings again, only to hear a stranger on the other end offering him a chance to win 10,000 baht. At first, Phuchit suspects it's a prank call from his colleague or friends. But the caller goes on to reveal personal details about him, such as his full name, age and work status, that make him wonder. I mean, it sounds like it's probably his friends. Then the caller says he just needs to swat the fly that's buzzing around him right now. If he completes the task, he wins a cash prize of 10,000 baht. Phuchit is skeptical, but after some coaxing from the anonymous caller, he decides to give it a try. He rolls up the paper and swats the fly with ease. On the second of the next day, to his surprise, he receives a message confirming that 10 baht has been transferred to his bank account. While Phuchit is gasping with excitement, the caller offers him a chance to win 50 baht if he eats a dead fly. Unsure and hesitant, Phuchit returns to his table with a dead fly in his hand, pondering whether to go for it or not. After a brief hesitation, however, he pops it in his mouth. The tongue of one of his colleagues notices it, but she is so confused that she does not utter a word. Some time later, Phuchit receives another phone call, and the caller informs him that he has a chance to win a huge sum of money of $100 million if he completes a total of 11 more tasks. Despite his worries about the mysterious caller and the dubious nature of the game, Phuchit is desperate for cash, so he agrees to the terms and conditions. The caller warns him that if he quits the game or if anyone discovers that he is playing the game, he will have to forfeit all his winnings immediately. For the third assignment, Phuchit is instructed to go to the kindergarten and make at least 3 children cry. Though hesitant about the first assignment, he recalls his own traumatic childhood experience of having his father smash his toys. So he steals the children's toys and makes them cry. The fourth assignment involves stealing money from a beggar, a reprehensible act that Phuchit is reluctant to commit. With the fifth assignment, things take a difficult turn. Phuchit is ordered to visit a high-end Chinese restaurant, where he is handed a plate of feces and ordered to eat it. Although he is disgusted and protests, the caller insists that he complete the task or risk losing his prize. Memories of being forced as a child to eat dog poop add to his misery, but eventually Phuchit forces himself to finish his plate. Even this time, Tong catches him in the act. She begins to speculate that he has lost his mind. Either that or he's broke. As the tangled game progresses, the challenges become more humiliating, illegal, and deadly. Before he begins his sixth assignment, Phuchit is instructed to give his phone to an unhinged man at a bus stop. Through him, Phuchit learns that his next task is to fight a group of teenage bullies on a moving public bus in order to get hold of another cell phone. It won't be as cool as it was at first. Then Phuchit tries to negotiate with the criminals over the phone, but when they start bullying him, he gets into a physical altercation with them. During the scuffle, Phuchit and one of the bullies fall off the bus, sustaining injuries. The fight is not over, however, as the teenage thug pulls out a knife and approaches him. Just as he is about to attack, Phuchit grabs a large piece of meat and stabs his attacker in the head, rendering him unconscious and completing his 6th challenge. The next challenge will be even more harrowing. Phuchit is tasked with breaking into the house and retrieving the dead man's corpse. The problem is that it lies at the bottom of the well. Not only that, but Phuchit also has to notify the family members of the deceased, and the total time for the entire task is only 10 minutes. It's a very important and scary task, but since Phuchit has come this far in the accounting, there's no turning back. As he descends into the well, he notices 3 cockroaches on his arm, which terrify him and cause him to fall into the water. After taking some time to gather his strength, Phuchit ties the rotting corpse to himself and begins to climb out of the well. Despite the limited time limit, he manages to get out and call family members just before the deadline. Soon after, he gets another assignment, which involves physically abusing his ex-girlfriend's current boyfriend. Of course, Phuchit says surprisingly, but Phuchit quickly comes to terms with it. "Oh, I kid," and without hesitation he grabs the nearest chair and viciously beats the man until he loses consciousness. Soon, however, Phuchit is overcome with guilt for his violent actions, so he quickly rushes the victim to the hospital. As he continues to deal with increasingly difficult and morally questionable tasks, the police begin to take notice of his criminal behavior. Led by Officer Surachai, the police team begins tracking down Phuchit, suspecting that his criminal activities are part of a larger and more sinister scheme. Meanwhile, Tong grows increasingly concerned about Phuchit's strange behavior. Piecing together evidence she overheard at the police station, she uses her computer knowledge to hack into a website called 13. There she finally stumbles upon a live broadcast of Phuchit's horror show. Every film made, wherever it goes, is taped. However, Tong has no idea that she too is being watched closely and that she has unwittingly become part of the very game she is investigating. In the next scene, Phuchit, who is now a wanted man, finds himself in the hospital. There he sees the news that the police are after him. Suddenly his phone rings, and the same mysterious caller warns him to avoid seeing the police, as his capture will mean the end of the game and prize money will be lost. Despite the potential danger, Phuchit continues on his next assignment, his 8th, which requires him to help a patient escape from room 803 of the hospital. Hiding from the authorities, he makes his way to said ward. Surprisingly, the patient he is supposed to help is the same elderly woman from the first scene. Quickly figuring it out, Phuchit disguises himself as a ward boy and manages to get the old woman into a wheelchair. And escapes from the hospital just before the police arrive. Meanwhile, a high-ranking police officer orders a halt to the pursuit of a wanted criminal. Discharged from the hospital, Phuchit leads the elderly woman to her humble cabin on the side of the main road. He then helps her dry her clothes by tying a silicone wire. Unbeknownst to him, however, the other end of the wire is fastened across the main road and invisible in the dark. Soon after, a group of teenagers on motorcycles rides by, completely unaware of the wire. A terrible accident ensues, in which one of the riders is killed. This tragedy devastates Phuchit, and he pounces on the mysterious telephone caller who has been helping him on these heinous assignments. As he comes to terms with the serious consequences of his actions, Tong arrives on the scene and is shocked to witness the aftermath of the accident. She begs Phuchit to turn himself in to the police, assuring him that they will look into the circumstances behind his actions. Tong also reveals that she knows about the game he was playing. Just as they are talking, the phone rings, and the caller tells Phuchit that the game is over because someone else found out about it. However, he gives Phuchit one last chance and assigns him one more mission to kill Tong's dog. It turns out that the little puppy has already been kidnapped and brought to an elderly woman's house. When Tong sees it, she becomes confused. She begs for mercy for her dog, but is so caught up in the game that she pulls out a sharp weapon and mercilessly kills the innocent dog. Phuchit then warns Tong to stay away from him before rushing off in his car. Phuchit is truly taken in by his name. After what happened, Tong is determined to uncover whoever is behind it all and decides to go to the police station to report her suspicions. However, she has no hard evidence to back up her claims because the website she hacked earlier is now completely blank. Discouraged, she leaves the station feeling helpless and lost. When she walks out, she runs into a group of villagers arguing amongst themselves. Tong goes over to check on them and learns that someone has shockingly slashed their cow with a samurai sword. The feeling gives her goosebumps running down her back when she realizes that it is none other than Phuchit. Tong follows the blood trail he has laid and finds herself in a strange room with the number 13 on it. As she is about to enter it, however, the man grabs her from behind. Tongo then takes her to where the reality game is being played from. When she enters the room, she comes face to face with the mastermind behind the game, a little boy named Ki. It turns out that this is the same boy we saw in the beginning of the movie, Scout. Surprisingly, he never dies. An elderly woman somehow saves his life. Tong tries to reason with him and asks him to put an end to the game, claiming that it has already taken the lives of many innocent people. However, Ki reveals that he is powerless to do so because he is only a component of it. And the underground reality game involves players and spectators numbering perhaps as many as 1,000. Elsewhere, when Phuchit gets to the game's final destination, he is taken by surprise by the revelation that the game is a social experiment, and all his actions have been monitored and recorded all along. He is then faced with the daunting task of stabbing his own abusive father, John Adams, who is strapped into a wheelchair and appears to be unconscious. This final assignment promises a prize pool of $100 million, and in Phuchit is torn between the temptation to win the prize and his conscience. He begins to have memories of a time when his father did good things for him. For example, chasing away bullies and bringing him new toys. Eventually he decides to give up the game because he remembers his mother's wish that he never become a bad person like his father. But just as he is about to leave, Adams wakes up and buries his son to death. With this key from the control room, it is announced that Adams has 100 million won bucks. It turns out he was also playing his own game, and the ultimate goal was to kill his son. While Phuchit hesitated whether to carry out the task, Adams did not. Tong is devastated after witnessing the brutal turn of events, and she cries out to Ki. The young mastermind, however, remains unperturbed. Instead, he reveals that 1 million people just like Phuchit and Adams are currently playing the game. What's more, 1 billion viewers watch the games around the world and bet on them, and that's where all the money comes from. Having said that, he calls his guards and gets Tongo out of there. In the final scene, we see her waking up on a bus bench, disoriented and confused. Tonga is with the doctor, who is still investigating deaths related to the game. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment and like it. See you soon.